Most people know that following your passion is not the way to go, but not many people talk about heeding a call or being called to do something with your life. And what I mean by that is a calling is a deep internal abiding drive to do something specific with your life, often associated with things like the clergy or the military. But the difficult thing is that if you don't pay attention to a few specific things, following your calling in life, heeding that call can be a lot more difficult than it has to be. After my last video on the biggest mistake that people make in their lives, and I'll have that linked at the end of this video, one of the guys in one of my private communities, the one for Richard Cooper's Entrepreneurs in Cars, reached out to mention that he was having some difficulties. He's called to be a musician, a singer, and specifically, and he's been following this path for about 6 years now. And he's having a lot of difficulty because the people in his community, the people in his life, don't believe in him. So he has to walk this road alone. And it also brings up a lot of doubts about whether or not this is the right path for him, whether or not he should give up, do something more practical, whether or not he's good enough, all those usual doubts that people have when they're on their mission in life. The thing that makes this guy special is that he knows what he wants to do with his life. He's being called to do something specific, in this case, be a singer. He's got this internal deep drive to do this very specific thing as a way to leverage his natural talents and the way and what he loves to do in a way that serves the world at large, entertains people, helps people, makes people's lives better in some way. Calling is a very, very specific thing. It's a drive or an instinct that you just can't deny. If you are a military person, if you've been called to serve in the military, you know what this means. If you're in the clergy, for example, you've been called to serve God in some way, then you know what this means. It's not something you can set aside or deny. You have to fulfill that need in a specific way, or at least fulfill it in some way that is in the same ballpark, right? A clergyman is not necessarily going to be satisfied being a businessman. Somebody who serves in the military is not necessarily going to be satisfied being a businessman either, because it doesn't fulfill those same needs for them. It doesn't leverage their own natural talents and abilities, and it doesn't have that same impact on the world. For me, my calling has always revolved around helping people and trying to save the world, right? From a very young age, I was always into military and science fiction novels, mostly military sci-fi, where people were putting their lives on the line, trying to protect innocent people from harm. A lot of detective novels, a lot of cop novels, a lot of spy novels, right? Playing the great dame to make sure that your side wins, the other side loses, again, keeping innocent people from harm. The idea of being that knight in shining armor that stood against the darkness to protect those who didn't deserve the consequences of the world around them or the dangers of the world around them always resonated with me very, very powerfully. So once I was going through college and realizing that college was not the place for me, being a computer science guy and being a medical guy was just not going to be my path in life, I decided to join the military. Well, now granted, now part of that was just to get out of Kansas, but a bigger part was to fulfill that need to kind of be that knight in shining armor, to stand between the dangers of the world and those who didn't deserve to have those inflicted on them, the innocents of the world, right? And so I joined the Marine Corps. And unfortunately, my military career was not, in fact, fraught with or filled with saving the world. It was a lot of mowing lawns and doing maintenance on 5 tons and Humvees, and I got to be a rifle pistol coach for a while, which was really kind of cool. And that's where I also found my passion for educating and mentoring. And what I realized over time, as I moved from that onto the world of contracting and doing work in the intelligence community, was that there's a great deal of satisfaction that I got from being able to prevent harm, from being able to figure out ways to keep bad things from happening to people who didn't deserve it. But there's also a big difference between helping the world in the abstract and helping the world on an individual level. And that was one thing that sort of reared its ugly head over the past 3, 4, 5 years, was this feeling that no matter how much I did, no matter how much work I did, no matter how many amazing things we accomplished behind the scenes, it was never enough. The world never really changed. And so I had to find a different path. Fortunately, after my second divorce, I got involved in a number of private communities. Richard's for one of them, John from Modern Life Dating's Body Language Mastery, Ryan Stone's Patreon group, a couple of groups focused on hypnosis and personal development work in that sphere. And as a result, I began to realize that it was that individual touch that was really my need. that ability to touch an individual life, to help out a specific person move through life a little bit better, to save them from their personal demons, right? To help mitigate harm on an individual level rather than trying to save the world at large. Once I realized that, everything clicked into place. And the transition from doing the contracting and intelligence community work to being a hypnotist was a very easy, very natural one. In fact, I kind of had to fight myself for a little while to not take the step of just jumping out of my old job entirely. I had to wait until I could make sure that this was financially viable and get all my ducks in a row before I could do that. But it was very much a way to fulfill that internal drive that I had had for so long, that calling that I had to help people, to make the world a better place on a large scale or on a small scale. And yeah, I had a number of people tell me I was a little bit crazy for doing this kind of thing for a living. Being a hypnotist is not exactly what you would consider a normal profession. It's definitely not the kind of thing you leave your six-figure contracting job to do. Definitely not. And a lot of people had doubts about the impact that it could have, but I've seen it on an individual personal level. I've seen the changes that I've made for these men when I'm working with them. I've seen the changes in their lives and how much better their lives are just because of the work that I've done in the few short months that I've been doing this. Going back to my friend in the private community, he's got that internal drive. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He wants to create a better world through music by leveraging his talents in music, right? The problem is that he's around a group of people that's not terribly supportive. That happens quite a bit in our life. It's that whole crabs in a bucket mentality. It's not hanging around with the right group, not being with a group of people or a tribe that can truly understand you, support you, and help you get along to where you need in life. Because following your calling or heeding that call is a difficult path. You have to ignore a lot of what the world says around you in order to make your way. You've got to be able to reach out and make contact with people with very specific skill sets, very specific ways of viewing the world, in order to get the skills and the knowledge that you need in order to make that vision, make that calling a success, make the vision of the world a reality. You know, if you look at Robert Greene's mastery, it has a number of these tales of people who were incredibly driven to accomplish amazing things and the lengths that they had to go to in order to gain the skills and knowledge that they needed in order to make that a reality. Now, for me, that's come from groups like Richard Cooper's Entrepreneurs in Cars, you know, Body Language Mastery Group, Ryan Stone's Patreon, the various hypnosis groups that I'm a part of. Those are filled with men who are also on their purpose in life, who are also making a dent in the universe. And they have the skills and knowledge to help you succeed when you don't have that in real life. That's just kind of the nature of the beast these days. And speaking of Rich Cooper, he often talks about this very thing, about making a dent in the universe and being on your purpose, right? It's not enough just to stack dollars and cents. It's not enough just to flip burgers at McDonald's. You actually have to make a dent in the universe. The things that you do have to have an impact on the world at large, not just for you as an individual. And being on your purpose is incredibly freeing. You have no idea how amazing it is when I'm sitting there just rolling through session after session, reaching out to guys, making those connections and making their lives better, how much energy and how much joy I get out of life because of that. Now, there's this Japanese principle called ikigai, and the best person I have to talk about that is a guy by the name of Dr. Thomas P. Seeger. He wrote up a quick little article on Your Passion is Self-Interested BS, and it included a short little 2.5 minute long video discussing this concept of ikigai, which is a Japanese term. Essentially, you look at the world as two different things: you, the things you're good at, the things you love doing, and then the world around you or other people, the things they need and the things that they're willing to pay for, right? Well, if you're following your passion, then you're doing something you're great at that you love, but that doesn't necessarily have any interaction with or any impact or reflection on the world around you, on the world of other people. Well, if you're doing something that you are great at, that makes you a lot of money, well, that's a profession. That's what I was doing for a great number of years. And if you're doing something you love that people need, well, that's often a mission in life, you know, helping the poor, those kinds of things. Ikigai is this Japanese principle that says when you are at the middle or the junction of all four of those things, you're doing something you love, you're doing something you're good at, you're doing something that people need and that people are willing to pay for, that's your Ikigai, and life is incredibly easy. Following a calling, to me, is kind of like an Ikigai, but with one very important difference. A calling isn't focused on what people are willing to pay. It's what you're great at, it's what you love, and it's what people need. but it's not necessarily what people are willing to pay for. Being a clergyman doesn't pay very much. Being in the military is not about the money. Being a nurse, being a doctor is generally not about the money. It's about helping other people. So if you can take your calling and you can find a way to monetize it, if you can find a way to make money doing the things that you love, the thing that you're great at, the thing that people need, and finding a way to help have people pay for that, that's an ikigai. That's kind of leveling up from a calling and taking that deep internal drive and that deep internal abiding need and making it something that you can live on as well. That's fortunately what I've been able to do with my hypnosis practice. So I'll leave you with a couple of quick things and a couple of quick tips before we go. First of all, if you're going to be heeding your calling, focus on the what not, or the why not the what, or the what not the how. What I mean is focus on the internal need as far as what you're trying to accomplish rather than the mechanisms through which you're trying to accomplish it. Going back to my own personal story, it wasn't that being in the military or being in the intelligence community was the thing that I needed. Those were just vectors that I could use to help save the world, make the world a better place, help people avoid the negative consequences of the world around them, right? And if you focus on that why, if you focus on the what you're trying to accomplish rather than the how, that's going to help make it much more clear for you what you need to do to move forward in life. Second thing I'd say is you need to find your tribe, man. That's going to be even more important if you're heeding your call, heeding the calling, or if you're on your purpose with an ikigai. You have to have a tribe of supportive people around you who understand you, who can give you the support that you need, who can help you get the skills and knowledge that you need, that can help you get the connections that you need. I highly recommend Richard Cooper's Entrepreneurs in Cars group, his 1% group. I highly recommend John from Modern Life Dating's Body Language Mastery, Troy Francis, Ryan Stone. All these are great guys. Or if there's one that's more specifically focused on the thing that you're doing, like Entrepreneurs Online or Entrepreneurs Organization, I should say, that could also be a place to find those people. You got to avoid the crabs in the bucket. If you're among people that are not helping you out, that are not helping you level up, that are dragging you down, you need to find new people. And last but not least, keep the faith, man, within reason. What you really want to do is find somebody who's already on that mission, who's already heeding that call, the same kind of thing that you're doing. Link up with them and make sure you're on the right path. Because it could be that you don't have what it takes to follow that path, or maybe you're just not going to be able to fulfill it in the way that you thought. Learning that early so that you can adjust and find a way to fulfill that need within you, that calling, heed that call, that's going to get you there a heck of a lot sooner. Linked a couple of those videos that I mentioned before, the biggest mistake that people make, as well as find your tribe. Go check those out. Of course, hit the notification bell, subscribe below, comment, like, let me know what you liked about this video, what you'd like me to expand upon more next time. Also sign up for my email list. I'll be putting out more content through there, as well as doing some additional stuff in terms of getting people used to hypnosis and letting them explore those concepts on a more individual level with some recordings I'm going to be putting together over the next few weeks. Thanks a lot for listening in. We'll see you next time.